Welcome to episode 122 of How About the Huskies. As always, I'm your host, Connor, joined by Matt and Andrew, and maybe hard to believe based on how the Huskies played this year in Hartford, but for the second consecutive season, the Huskies went undefeated at the XL Center after tonight's 93 to 79 win over Georgetown, the UConn's most convincing win, I feel like, in a long time. That 14-point margin is the biggest we've seen in Big East play, the biggest we've seen since the Maryland Eastern Shore 99-45 thriller after Thanksgiving. There's a lot to talk about from this one. We saw a lot of positives, definitely some negatives thrown in there as well. I'll just let you guys have the floor because, like I said, a lot to unpack.
Yeah, honestly, tonight the Huskies were kind of like us. We started with some technical difficulties, but we're rolling now. And the Huskies started pretty slow, being down 14-4, but then they got rolling. I was never really nervous for this game. I feel like this had to be a game where we just beat them. I said the same thing about Seton Hall, but look where we were. So no game is really easy in the Big East, but I was happy to see us just win this convincingly because being down 14-4 to Georgetown at home was not ideal, but honestly, it's kind of just one of those games that eventually down the line will end up being forgotten about because it's not this, giant home game that was really close and down to the final buzzer. It's just your average win for the XL Center finale.
And at the start of the game, that deficit, could have been a little scary, but I think they started 5 of 5 or 6 of 6, four of those being threes to begin the game. So, I mean, as long as you could you called that timeout, you weather that storm, you immediately go on a 10-0 run of your own. Things become a lot easier for you. And from that point on, the game wasn't really close again. We had dominating performances from multiple individuals. We'll get in that into a little bit, but Terrace Reed came to play today. Very impressed from him. I think that, my opinion on him has not really changed. I believe he is the best big man on this team and caused Drew Fielder a lot of issues, fouled out pretty early in this one, and Huskies took home the W.
Yeah, the Hoyas, it was 5 for 5. They started four of them being threes. A couple by Micah Peavy, who was probably the best player on the floor. He's been awesome for them as of late. But yeah, I just feel like if we didn't go down 10, I don't know. I feel like we'd be in uncharted waters because looking at our six home Big East wins this season, four of them we were trailing by at least 10 points. And ironically, the two that we weren't trailing by at least 10 were two overtime games. So it's either we're going down to the wire in overtime or we're pulling this great comeback. There's really no in between there. It's just, I agree with you guys. I wasn't really concerned going down double digits because they're not going to shoot 100% the whole game. If they do, tip your cap, I guess, because that'd be one of the greatest games of all time. But yeah, we'll get into guys. I'm down to start with Terrace because this is his third straight game now scoring double figures. He was a beast inside. He's been a beast inside over the past few weeks, pretty much every game. It's just his rebounding, I feel like, is what sets him apart because he had how many offensive rebounds did he have in this one? He only had three after having six against St. John's, but just him creating second chance opportunities for this team offensively himself most of the time as he's getting these putbacks. It just really puts the team in position to be successful on the offensive end. And defensively, he had that monster block after he had a bucket, so he's improved on the defensive end all season as well. I feel like for the remaining three games plus however many postseason games that you play, Terrace Reed is going to determine how the Huskies play in those games. I feel like if he has an off game, the team's going to kind of follow because his energy is something that he brings as well. When he's getting these big blocks or putbacks, he's showing emotion, which is something I feel like some guys on this team don't show as often as maybe they could or should. So having that, I feel like we're not going to see 20 and 10 from him every night for the rest of the way, but I feel like more often than not, he's going to be having a double double, providing impact for the team on both ends.
You mentioned that 20 and 10. I just wanted to bring up that this is his third game this year with 20 points, with at least 20 points and at least 10 rebounds. Started off with Memphis back in, I'm not going to say it, but we all know where that was. Xavier back in December, and of course, this game against Georgetown. And I mean, he's making a huge difference. I'm really excited to see, not just him finish this season, but also kind of grow into the player that I think he will become next season, which is an even better player than the one he is right now. Obviously, he'll have a little more competition in that front court, but I truly believe he is a very, one of the more dominant, strong big mans in college basketball, and I think he'll kind of bloom into that, throughout not just this year, but also next year.
It's really weird to say that a bench player is going to pretty much decide how the rest of our season goes, but it's really true. I mean, Terrace this year has given us so many great games and we have so many great wins because of that. And I feel like, especially with the inconsistency of Samson Johnson, he's going to end up being a guy where, if he gets his number called, he's going to go in and dominate. The Providence game comes into mind and so many other ones. Samson's going to do a lot of great things for us down the stretch as well. But I just feel like the way that Terrace plays with that kind of the Kodiak killer bear mentality, is that what we gave him on Twitter there? Our UConn Twitter friends, the bear mentality, we can joke about it all we want, but it's really good. You have to know that you're the toughest and biggest guy out there. And if you don't, then, you're going to let other people get under your skin. And I feel like that's what happens to a lot of centers in college basketball is they automatically think that they're unmatched because of the size of the other guy, and they're just automatically at a disadvantage before the ball even tips. So I feel like a key beyond stats for Terrace Reed is just going to be like to have that mentality and just know that you're the best option. You're out there for a reason.
There was a point in the first half when they showed on the broadcast a little in the huddle moment between, the team, and Hurley was kind of going at Terrace, saying that he was being like not aggressive enough. And I feel like Terrace kind of took that to heart because after that, I mean, he just went off. I mean, 20 points from a center this season has been uncharted waters for us. And I mean, just him being able to kind of like point out, I mean, what he was doing wrong before Hurley even said it. It was just something that I took away from that as a huge positive, someone who, has definitely been learning throughout the year and has been doing nothing but improving.
With his minutes, I feel like Terrace can determine his own minutes, and I don't think Sampson can determine his own minutes. What I mean by that is if Terrace is playing like he did tonight, Hurley's gonna go away from the usual like split, pretty much even 20-20 split and have them each play half the game. Terrace is gonna play what he played 27, 28 minutes tonight. Sampson only played 12 or 13. I feel like Terrace can control that. But Sampson, I feel like we don't usually see him, even in games he does well, play major minutes. I mean, there's an outlier that Seton Hall game he played 35 in the overtime game. But besides that, he's not more often than not. I mean, 25 at 27 is like the max he plays. So Terrace is still getting in there, even if he's not playing well. But I feel like Terrace, I feel like what I'm trying to say makes more sense in my head. But it's just Terrace, if he's producing, he's going to be out there. If Sampson's producing, he's still going to be out there, but Terrace is going to play more, if that makes sense. Moving on to the backcourt, I feel like we kind of talked the setters to death there. Solo ball, 20 points. First time in a few games he's gotten there after some really not poor shooting, but below average solo ball performances. As of late, he hit four threes. He probably could have hit five or six with some great looks. I just feel like he's another guy. It's easy to call everyone X factors, but I mean, we were struggling. We struggled against St. John's. He didn't. He went what 3 for 9 from three in that game, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. We need him to hit his shots if we want this team to go anywhere. He's getting the looks. He took 13. I still feel like we need him to take more because he's out there to be strictly pretty much just a shooter and a scorer. I want to see his shot attempts closer to maybe 18, his 3-point attempts 12 or 13. I feel like he's such a high volume guy, and I feel like his percentages are great as they are right now. If you take one or two more, odds are you'll hit one or two more, and that could be the difference in a big game.
I think solo ball is kind of the pure example of Dan Hurley's idea here of what he wants his team to be. I mean, in his past 5 games, he's taken exactly 13 shots. And in 4 of those 5 games, exactly 9 of them have been threes. I mean, he's getting, the looks that he wants. And I think Hurley's kind of doing the math before games, kind of like we need these guys to get this many looks. Solo needs to get at least this many shots. I mean, he hasn't scored under double digits since December. He has been a huge X factor for us, and I'm hoping that he stays into next year. I think the pro possibility is there if this team is a little bit more successful. But I mean, if he comes back next year, I mean, we could be seeing an even better version of solo ball.
And I don't remember the quote, but at the press conference tonight, Hurley mentioned something about Solo being a 16, 17 point per game scorer next year. So clearly that's on his mind, at least Hurley's mind, that Solo will be coming back for another year. He seems like a sneaky, and I don't want to get into this right now. We're not going to, but this is just my thought. He's a sneaky, maybe go pro. He's a guy, I mean, how obviously he can improve on the defensive end, but he's this guy. He's also shooting 45% from three, and I feel like a lot of NBA teams are gonna like that. But I don't know, this is my opinion. Like I said, don't want to get into it right now, but definitely food for thought to think of with the offseason looming a lot closer than we think.
Kind of just bringing it back to this game here. I mean, he really set the tone from the beginning. He hit some big shots early, kind of got us on that little run. I mean, 46%, 40 from three meets the season averages. I mean, 45% from three is just unconscious level shooting. And I mean, that's exactly what he brought to the table this game. And, was, I'd say, if not the biggest, the second biggest reason that we went on that big run and took this game home.
He's going to end up being the clutch player for us this year because he's not going to be the guy that you're going to necessarily look to shoot a three every single time if you need one because not everything's going to go in. That doesn't happen for everybody. But if it gets down into a situation and we need a three, it might be contradicting what I just said, but I want to give the ball to Solo Ball because I feel like he has the best shot on this team to make it. I'm not really dissing any of the other guys. They're all great shooters, but I feel like in terms of clutch and needing a three, Solo Ball is going to be that guy, and he's probably going to have to do that down the stretch. We got a tough one on Saturday in a tough environment, and an even tougher one at home, and apparently also a tough one for senior day at Gamble when the Pirates come to town, and then the Big East tournament and the NCAA tournament. So I think this game was really good, kind of a preview to see what he's going to do in the tournament. I'm not necessarily looking at Solo Ball's numbers when I look at his production. I'm looking at when he makes the shots and how he carries himself when he makes the shots.
I kind of want to make a point here about our wing players. I know I'm kind of going off topic here, but figured I'd pull us into it. McNeely and Caravan. This has been, in my opinion, the best game they've played together since they've both been back. They both were effective. Caravan 1 of 5 from three, but 5 of 11 from the field. I mean, he's in some sort of slump, but I mean, he's affecting the game in so many other ways. He had 13 points tonight, 2 blocks, the only blocks for any starter. And McNeely had 17, and it felt like a very quiet 17. It didn't feel like a 17 where he was scoring all these buckets in the clutch. It just felt like these two finally put it together and finally kind of gelled to a point where you weren't even thinking about it. They were just getting buckets and they were just playing winning basketball. And I think going forward, I would love to see more of that. If McNeely could drop 17 and you don't even notice it, I feel like you can expect him to be dropping mid 20s come the Big East tournament and making a major difference for the team.
You stole those words right out of my mouth. I was going to say a quiet 17 for Liam, but for Alex, then I want to do one last kind of solo point. But with Alex, one of those three-pointers, I don't know how that missed. The one that went around the rim and circled, it was like three-quarters of the way down. That's just, I guess, when you're in a slump, you're not getting the rolls like that. But one last point on Solo and how you mentioned, Andrew, he could be this clutch guy. I'm thinking of our signature wins this season. Usually we have one dude step up. It was Liam against Gonzaga at the Garden. He had what, 27-ish, something around there. It was Liam in that Creighton game. He had 38. On the road in Marquette, it was Solo Ball. And he's shown that he could step up in the moment. He hit, I think, 7 threes in that game, had 25 points, something around that. I don't have it in front of me. Those numbers are close if they're not accurate. It's just Solo's proven he's one of the guys that can step up and single-handedly win you a game, which in March, I know we haven't had to do that the past couple of years with how great our teams have been, but you see other teams that go on runs in March. Like, look at even us with Kemba in 2011. I'm not saying Solo Ball or Liam McNeely's going to do that, but they have the potential to take over games scoring wise and really make an impact and decide the game. So I feel like I didn't expect to be saying that about Solo Ball coming into the year. He can single-handedly maybe advance us in the NCAA tournament, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. I feel like his shooting, even though he only went 4 for 10, he had a couple bad games before this. I feel like his shooting is only going to get better from here, and it's scary to say that. I feel like he hasn't his scoring went down because Liam's been back and there's been less shots for him to have. But I feel like he's growing comfortable. We're not going to have 93 points as a team every night, probably the rest of the way, because this is the most we've had in almost 4 months or 3 months, whatever it is. So, but just closing this point, I just feel like Solo can win us games in March. I just can't wait to see it. One last, I know I want to get to the forwards because there's a lot to say there, Matt. You kind of kicked us off there, but Hassan Diarra deserves some talk because I feel like since the whole like he's been injured thing came out, I don't. Well, when was that? Almost a month ago now. Was that first St. John's game, I believe. This was his best game, I feel like, in the month of February. 14 points. He had 7 assists. no, didn't make a three, but you don't need him to do that because when Solo and Alex and we'll count Liam, he hit three. When they're doing that, we don't need Hassan Diarra to hit threes. He got to the rim with some nice finishes inside, had some nice finds. I feel like this team has shown struggles at the point guard position this year, especially against pressure. And having Diarra, he's looking healthier, in my opinion. I feel like he's not 100% healthy, but even he's saying he feels healthier than when he first was injured. Hurley said it was a going to be a season-long injury, just something he had to deal with, but he's clearly dealing with it well. I feel like Matt, you said a quiet 17 for Liam. It was almost a quiet 14 for Diarra. I mean, just maybe he's just outshined by Solo's 20 and Terrace's 20, but the way he was able to get his points both at the free throw line and driving to the hoop is something we really need. We've missed out of guards since we lost Newton and Spencer and even Castle. He was the guy that could get to the rim. So good to see Diarra do that. But we'll get to those forwards. Caravan, McNeely, Jalen Stewart had a couple of big buckets, but not much more out of that. Jaden Ross, I know Hurley talked about how he wished Jaden Ross played more in that St. John's game, and he goes and plays Jaden Ross 2 minutes against Georgetown. I don't understand that, but all in all, like you said, Matt, I agree. Probably the most productive game from Alex and Liam combined we've seen since they've both been back over the past 3 weeks.
I also don't understand that. It's not like a fan saying that they wish that Jaden Ross played more. It's almost as if he could have put him in the game whenever he wanted, right? Like I don't understand that. Like I mean, the fact that he said it, it's probably not wrong. You know, you want to have a long athletic guy for that game, but I just like I don't know. How do you not realize you're not putting him in? I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a weird thing for him to say, honestly.
I think it's sort of a metaphor towards the season that Ross has had. I mean, I think Hurley would have loved if Ross played a little bit more in every game. He's, got all the talent in the world, super athletic, but I mean, he just hasn't been able to put the pieces together. I think we're beginning to see the end of Jaden Ross here at UConn, sadly. Like I said, I'm an extremely talented, the most athletic guy on the team, in my honest opinion. But I mean, if you don't have the tools to be a top tier Division 1 player, then you just don't have it. And just doesn't seem like Hurley really sees that in Ross anymore. If you remember back at the beginning of the season, back at media day, I mean, he was talking about him very highly, almost as if he was one of the better players on the team. And to be honest, that's kind of what it looked like in preseason. But I just don't think that. I mean, he's gonna be in that much come the rest of the season. I think he kind of meant in a sense that it would have been awesome, if he could have played more. But I just don't think that Hurley thinks he's to that capability anymore. And I think he's just, kind of cutting his losses.
I agree. I feel like that's what the quote could mean, and it's true. But I also feel like he truly meant, "I wish I played him more," which is very weird to say as the only guy who has control over whether how much a guy plays. But I just feel like we're still trying to figure out this bench. It's still a work in progress. Ahmad Noel is the first guard off the bench today. If you guys have your box scores up, take a look and notice if something's missing. I want you guys to tell me anything missing from this box score. Anything of note?
Aiden Mahaney.
Aiden Mahaney
I didn't even
had
realize, to be
he
entirely
had
honest.
played in every single game up to this point this season. DNP coach's decision tonight. I mean, you could almost argue you saw it coming based on his. I'm pulling up his game log right now. His past two games, 4 minutes, 2 minutes, 4 minutes. So it's not that surprising, but like at the same time, I'm a little surprised because he can provide something if he gets a chance. I'm still on that train. I mean, he had double figures. I guess that's already a month ago now, but the point stands. He's a guy who, given the opportunity, I feel like could shine. It's just clearly he's doing something wrong in practice. He does stuff wrong in the games too. Don't get me wrong. We've seen him have some silly fouls or turnovers or missed shots, but I don't know. I'm just surprised that Hurley. I don't think he's fully given up on him. Like, will he have a DMP next game? Maybe. I honestly don't think that'll be the case though. But it's just really surprising to see him not even play for his 2 minutes like he's been playing recently.
You know, the same thing happened 2 years ago with yet another white guy that can shoot the ball named Joey Calcaterra. And for him, I don't think it was really concerning because we had seen him kind of start to decline and lose his role a little bit. But I, this kind of concerns me because he had been providing things besides scoring the ball off the bench. I mean, Solo Ball played 35 minutes tonight. He gave the nod to Noel for 7 minutes. Hassan Diarra played 31. There wasn't much time for him to get in there. But I don't understand this one either. He's due for more than just shooting the ball and making threes. He makes pretty good passes at the guard position. Obviously the defense is kind of a struggle, but I don't really understand this move. Maybe it just wasn't his night to get him. Maybe the flow of the game was so good that Danny didn't want to do anything to interrupt it. But I don't know. I don't understand this one.
I was gonna bring up that point about Joey, and I'm glad you did because I was gonna try to jog your guys' memories, but you're on top of it, Andrew. I know you are. But I agree. I mean, look, I'm looking at Joey's game logs. I had it up ready to talk about it. He didn't play. It was a Seton Hall game on February. It was a weekend, maybe the 17th. A week later, at the Garden, he had 15 points and helped lead the Huskies to a win against St. John's. So I'm not saying Mahaney's gonna a week later from his DMP score 13 points against Marquette and help us lead us to a win. But I'm just saying I'd be surprised if this is a permanent thing because it's just weird because we've never really had in the past few years a guy fall out of the rotation like that. I mean, Solo Ball was only really in the rotation last year because of the Stephon Castle injury. Once Castle was really 100%, we saw less and less of Solo. That was expected. This one, I guess Mahaney just obviously isn't playing up to the standards, but I don't know. What has Ahmad Noel done better than Aiden Mahaney over the past couple of games? I mean, everyone's calling for Noel to play. He hasn't shown much to me that he belongs out there over a guy who's a junior that's proven he can do it at this level at the D1. Not, I obviously know it was a D1 player, but at the D1 level, a guy who's had a lot of success. I'm surprised that it's not a quick hook since February, but it's almost like why now? Why not do it like 3 weeks ago when he was playing 4 minutes a game? It's just surprising. I feel like he will play at least a little bit in that Providence game and the remaining games, but maybe it's a wake up call as well because playing in every game, even if you're not playing much, you're still getting in there. But now, for the first time all year, you go home, you didn't even play. I feel like it's got to wake something up, but I don't know. Just that's my opinion on the whole matter.
I mean, one thing I feel like we have to remember is that this is the most noise that there has been around a UConn team probably ever in history. And there's a lot going on. Not only are you back-to-back national champs looking to go for your three-peat to be the first team to do it, and I don't even know how long, but there's a lot of inner noise and a lot of noise and drama coming from the inside. Ahmad Noel being one of those main culprits. Um, a lot going on with him, his trainer slash dad. I don't even know if that's if they're related, but there's a lot of turmoil there between Ahmad and the community and Ahmad, and it seems like with Danny, um, we have the other freshman, Isaiah Abraham, who hasn't played at all since, the gimme games. And I mean, there were rumors around Christmas that he was checked out when he was gone. I mean, there's just noise all over the place. Jaden Ross, kind of being not a failure, but definitely more of a project than Hurley expected. I just feel like there's so much going on that you need your core to step up. And I think we kind of saw that today. Solo with 35, AK with 35, Liam with 35. I think we're going to see a shorter rotation, and I think Mahaney was just the short end of the stick today. I think Ahmad kind of got his way today, and I don't think he really did anything at all that warranted any more playing time. He really looks like a freshman, and I think Hurley he knows that Ahmad is not a game changer yet. I mean, he's going to go out there. What was he, 0 of 2 today? He had a turnover. He had a nice block, but he really wasn't doing anything out on the court. And I feel like I said, there's all this noise. It's very difficult to coach a team perfectly when there is so much going on. And I just think Hurley is trying some stuff out.
And this is kind of getting away from the game for a tiny bit, but this is the thing that sucks about being such a good team is that you have so much noise because the media is constantly looking for ways to bring you down. I've seen headlines about everything, both things that Matt just mentioned, um, headlines about did Danny Hurley mess up and leave or mess up by not taking the Lakers or Kentucky job. Is he getting exposed for being a terrible coach? I've seen all these ridiculous, stupid headlines, and it's just people trying to bring us down for really no reason. And I hate talking about it because it's one of the reasons I hate social media in general, because it's just a cesspool of people who have no idea what they're talking about, trying to bring other people down. And it really sucks. It's the thing that sucks about being good. But it's also kind of an honor. You wear the fact that people care so much about you and want to bring you down with honor, because if we were a first round exit again for 4 years, nobody would give a single crap about us. We wouldn't be the talk of the town no matter what happens. We win, this team's overrated. They lose, we lose, they suck. There's always something new every day about us, and it's honestly just kind of sucks to read. I don't know. That's really all I had to say about that.
I think the truth of the matter is that if Ed Cooley were to be coaching this team, we would have 6 conference wins right now. I think Hurley has done an amazing job with what he's been given this year. Um, right now you got Liam, who was a top 10 recruit. You got AK, who was your guy. Then, other than that, what did he really have to work with? He had the emergence of Solo Ball, who played 10 minutes a game last year and averaged 3 points. Samson, who's been a career backup at center. Hassan, who's been a career backup at point guard. And a bench full of question marks. And to be entirely honest, we have gotten more than expected from Terrace. We've gotten just about what we expected from Ross. Stewart has underperformed. Mahaney has underperformed. Noel is not ready. Abraham hasn't played. There's not much going on here. And this team is 19-9 right now, 11-6, and fourth overall in the Big East. And like anybody who can just say anything about Hurley, I just don't really think understands the drastic difference between the past 2 years and this year. Last year, you were given two of the best guards in college basketball. The year before that, I mean, you had a generational front court with Sonogo and Klingon. It's just I feel like I've said this over and over, but I mean, Hurley has kind of gotten every ounce of talent out of this team. I'm really, proud of these guys for what they've been able to do, regardless of, we're not ranked, we're not a top 25 team in the country, probably won't go to the national championship, but I think this has been a very competitive year for a team that top to bottom isn't that competitive. And I feel like next year we will see, more of a I can't even think of the word, more of a kind of more paying attention to the transfer portal. I think Hurley's going to really try and go after his guys here this summer. And I mean, we have 4 very talented freshmen coming in, and I think next year we could be back on top of college basketball. But for this year, I mean, remain competitive and let your guys grow.
And I have one last point about this, then we'll move on. I feel like we're getting a little too negative. All of us are for our biggest win of Big East play and biggest win in 3 months. I feel like we're digging down a hole here, but I'll have one last point. Ed Cooley said this in the presser, and it's something that is actually very true. Last year, he didn't say exactly this, but this is just me paraphrasing it. Last year, we were 37-3. I mean, there's only one way to go from there unless you win either 38, 39, or 40 games. It's backwards. And people may not like it, and it didn't have to be this extreme. We already have 9 losses. We're probably going to end with at least 10 or 11 losses, maybe even 12. I don't didn't have to be this extreme, but I feel like the expectations, and I've mentioned this a couple times on this show this season, the expectations for us, I feel like we're a little higher because of what we've done the past couple of years. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to get back to the Final Four championship game where it's a failure, but I feel like there's a portion of the fan base that almost expects that at this point, which is very hard to do. Even with a team as dominant as we had last year, it's not easy to win every game in a row to get to the championship and win it. There are very good teams all time that slip up early in the tournament and don't get anything to show for it. So I guess that's my last point. The expectations for this team, I feel like were set too high based on what they had, which is kind of your point, Matt. And there was only one way to go from last year's probably one of, if not the best teams in program history. It's backwards. They did go backwards, and people don't seem to like it, but it is what it is.
One of my college professors, shout out to Dr. Abdallah for saying this. The March Madness tournament is a tournament full of losers. 63 teams lose in this tournament, one team wins. You realize what the odds of being that team to win are and to do it twice in a row? You know, it's really close between the '04 national championship and last year's, but if not being alive for '04 would make me give the edge to last year's team as the best UConn team of all time. Like Connor just said, going 37-3 is an anomaly. I mean, I don't know the last time that a team did that. And I don't even want to look it up because it's probably a pretty long time ago, but you can't expect to have that every year. It's not a fair expectation for anybody. And it's just really, it's not a good expectation to have as a fan because you'll be let down. I feel like everybody knew that we weren't going to be, the 37-3 team that we were, but at the same time, some people did, and it just brought people down. I don't know, it's just kind of been a weird year, but I just think the focus on this team has shifted to so many different things this year, which also kind of sucks because it should just be on basketball and winning games. But there's the outside noise and the media noise and everything else. So I just feel like that people just need to sit down, relax, and watch basketball. We're not going to win a national championship every year. That's not what this tournament is made for. So I just feel like that people need to just relax and watch basketball and stop acting like it's life or death.
Just gonna put this pretty blunt. Since 21, 22, not counting this year, obviously, because these guys can't go pro yet. I mean, UConn has a full NBA roster. They do. If you look at it last year, we lost out on Newton, Spencer, Klingen, Castle. Year before that, we lost out on Adama, Hawkins, and Andre. And if you count Joey, who's in the G League as an NBA player, and the year before that, you lose Tyrese Martin and Isaiah Whaley and Tyler Pauley, both G League players. That's 11 guys. Do you know how hard it is to build a championship roster in one season? I mean, I just went back 3 years, but to kind of have this expectation now that you've won back to back that your team's just going to be a top four team every season, it's unrealistic. We have taken an obvious step back, but we're still a very competitive team. I think we're going to be very competitive in March, and um, I mean, I can't take the Hurley hate. I can't take the Hurley slander because what he's done with the program is just so it'll never be done again. I just don't think anybody will come in and in 5 to 7 years win two championships in a row and produce 11 NBA players. It's just improbable.
Yeah, in baseball, you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Fame caliber player. So it's not the end of the world if Dan Hurley fails 1 out of 3 times and doesn't win a national championship this season. But finally, moving on, you guys got any last points about this Georgetown game? I feel like we are talking about the Georgetown game, right? Pretty sure this is this episode. Not even sure, but we'll move on to a quick, brief preview because we're going a little longer than expected. Preview of this weekend's game against Providence in March, March 1st, first game of March, hopefully of many for the Huskies. Providence was a very interesting game. It was early January, first game without Liam. He got injured the game before against DePaul. It was one of those typical down by 14, come back and win home games because, of course, every home game for us has to be an adventure. But maybe this round will be different because Providence, I feel like as a team, has gotten worse since then. Bryce Hopkins officially won't be playing the rest of the year. That was announced in the past couple months since we last saw them. They just don't have a lot of great offensive options, but they gave us a scare last time, so I'm not saying discredit them. I mean, we lost to Seton Hall. I'll say that. I mean, we don't want to mention the other word that Matt refused to mention earlier, but I'll mention we lost to Seton Hall because we did. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like this Providence game, it's a little bit of a trap game just because it's a road Big East game and they're always tough. We're 5-4 on the road this year. We're not invincible, but yeah, I'm pretty confident. I feel like overall going in.
I would say I'm also confident. We obviously are not very friendly with the Friars in terms of fans or really anything. They don't like us. We don't like them as fans. Um, but going back to that game at Gamble, there was one thing about that game that really stuck out to me when we were down 14 was that nobody was booing. I was up there screaming my head off, clapping when we were down 14 when I honestly half of me wanted to leave because it was just so bad. But nobody was booing. Everybody was cheering, and we ended up winning that game. Providence isn't too far from Connecticut, so why can't we get a good crowd at this one? We lost our Stores South game at MSG. Credit to the St. John's Nation. You can say whatever you want about where they've been since 1985, but they came out on Sunday and they beat us. So why can't we get Stores kind of south there at the Amp in Providence for Saturday's game? It's a big game. We need it. It's the first game of March, and why can't we make it happen?
Stores East.
East, yeah, whatever.
This game was a long time ago, this first one against Providence. Just looking at the box score, there's so many different questions that I have. We didn't have Liam. Was this the first full game without Liam? I'm not positive. It was our first full game without Liam.
It was. This was starter Jay Ross too, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Off the dome.
Jaden Ross started, played 11 minutes, and didn't record a stat other than fouls. Mahaney played 20 off the bench and had 15 points.
Jaden
Haas had
Pierre was
19
also
points.
Steph Curry in this
Yeah, Jaden
game.
Pierre doubled his season average. This game was a thriller. We won 87-84 in one of the highest scoring Big East matches of the year. I don't expect this to happen again, but I mean, if it's anything like last time, it's sure to be an entertaining game. And who knows? You were mentioning Mahaney before. Maybe he could rekindle some of that magic from the previous game.
Well, that kind of pushes us into our final segment, the players to watch, and that gives away who I'm probably going to pick. So you guys are welcome to steal that player if you know who I'm talking about. But who are your guys' players to watch for this one?
I'm gonna actually go with a matchup to watch, and it's gonna be Terrace Reed versus Oswin Arunse because Oswin has been really the one kind of bright spot for Providence this year. There's not a ton to talk about with them, but I think that he has been a very good player for them, despite what the Providence fans on Twitter say. But he's been fantastic for them, and I think he's honestly going to end up turning himself into an NBA player. So I'm really curious to see how Terrace does against him again, because Terrace guarded him for a majority of that game at Gamble when Sampson was taken out and didn't re-enter. So I'm really curious to see how that goes, no matter if Terrace plays 2 minutes or 40 minutes.
Now I'm not going to steal Mahaney from you. I'm going to go with another guy that I mentioned previously. Um, the man who didn't play this game and was replaced by a goose egg in the stat column, Liam McNeely. Who else to come in and change a close game with a, big conference rival than the guy who didn't even play. I would just want to see him come in and be productive and, hopefully take us from a 3-point win up to double digits, kind of following in our Georgetown footsteps here, being able to make our biggest deficit and biggest win since, preseason.
And I am going to go Isaiah Abe. I'm actually going to go Aiden Mahaney. I mean, it's self-explanatory. He had his best game of the year, arguably against Providence. He's coming off a DMP a la Joey Calcaterra. I'm not saying we're going to see a big game out of him. There's a higher chance we don't see him at all than we see a good big game out of him. But I'm holding out. I'm holding true that we're going to see some Mahaney. He's going to hit some big shots. We haven't seen the last of him. I'll leave it at that, and I'll close my Mahaney thoughts. Close the book there. We haven't seen the last of him just because he didn't play in the game against Georgetown. He's going to have some. He's going to be a part of a big moment this season. Is that a positive big moment or a negative big moment? I don't know, but. Haven't seen the last of Aiden. He's my player to watch for this one if he gets in.
This video has gone a little longer than expected. I'm just pulling something up really quick. Usually we get this deep in episodes and we put something for you to comment, and today's a pretty special one. We have a birthday on our hands.
Yes,
Not
we
any of
do. The
us.
big 2-5.
Not any of us. Former big man Josh Carlton. His birthday is today. Hasn't been a Husky in almost a decade now, it feels like. Probably quicker than that, but I got him down as 26 today. 26 years old, his birthday on the day of recording. If you're still watching, hit us with a happy birthday, Josh, in the comments for Big Josh Carlton.
Oh yeah, he won't see it, but it's something to comment to see if you guys are watching this far. Josh is a guy I've always wanted to maybe get on the pod at some point, maybe in the off season. He'd be a fun shooting stores guest. That show still exists. We just don't have a lot of guests, so we don't do it often. But we have been going for a while. That'll do it for episode 122. Next time you hear from us, it'll be after the Providence game, previewing probably the most important game of the year because it determines what seed will be in the Big East tournament. That game against Marquette coming up next Wednesday. So that's when you'll hear from us next. Thank you guys for tuning in. Comment happy birthday, Josh, and thanks for watching.